Okay, folks, so we've muted everybody on the Zoom call, so you will have an opportunity to ask questions on the little bar below later on. We'll talk about that soon. But first thing, welcome to Crooked Tree Ranch. Myself and my wife Gina and daughter Charlotte would like to welcome you here. We wish we were welcoming you in person and the little grill was smoking away and we'd have all kinds of great food and wine, but I think the team has done a really good job at Achieve Tahoe with Stuart's help from Pride Mountain Vineyard. I think we've got a really good program for you. But before I hand it off, I want to just say a couple words. Achieve Tahoe and sort of the reason we're doing this is really important to our family, and it's been important to a whole bunch of other families. We started skiing there. I guess Charlotte was 8. She's 22 now, so 14 years she's been skiing there. I've been volunteering for about 12 and teaching for about 10. And so it's a program we really, really believe in. And it's probably one of the reasons that we moved up here. And as we go through this sort of crazy pandemic thing, I guess the thing I would highlight is it's hard on all of us, but it's really, really hard on the disabled community. So it's very isolating. So if you're part of that community, please reach out to your friends and hop on some of the virtual things that we're doing at Achieve Tahoe. If you know people that are, reach out to them. And hopefully when all this smoke and fire goes away and the snow shows up, we can all ski together and get back together and do the things that we really like to do. So with that, I would like to hand it over to Håkan Langri, our Executive Director, to start the program. Cheers, everyone. Cheers. She goes that way, I go this way.
Well, thank you, Mike, Gina, and Charlotte. This is a beautiful setting, so thank you so much for providing this for us. We're psyched to be here. Wish all of you could be here as well, maybe next year, right? As Mike said, I'm Håkan Langri, the Executive Director at Achieve Tahoe. And before we get to the main event, I'm sure you're all excited to jump into this. Hopefully you haven't already drank all your wine, save a little bit for Stuart's tasting. I just want to spend a couple minutes telling you about Achieve Tahoe. If you didn't already know, our mission is to provide affordable, inclusive, and physical and recreational opportunities that build health, confidence, and independence. Currently, we serve over 750 people with disabilities and their families annually. Our participants come from all over the US, but primarily Northern California. They range in age from 3 to 98, evenly split between children and adults. We serve anyone with any disability, including those with physical disabilities like spinal cord injuries, cerebral palsy, and multiple sclerosis, to intellectual disabilities like autism and Down syndrome, and sensory disabilities like blindness and deafness. At Achieve Tahoe, we provide the opportunity for people with disabilities to safely access the outdoors, something most of us so-called able-bodied folks take for granted, but it's sorely lacking for anyone with special needs. People with disabilities make up over 12% of the US population. Yet, think how few people with disabilities you see when you are at the gym, the pool, on the court, on the water, on the trails, and on the slopes. Well, Achieve Tahoe is here to change all that, providing greater access to the same activities most of us enjoy in and around Lake Tahoe. In the winter, we provide ski and snowboard instruction to people with disabilities at 4 resorts in North Lake Tahoe: Alpine Meadows, Squaw Valley, North Star, and Sugar Bowl. In the summer, we typically provide instruction in other outdoor recreation, like water skiing, sailing, tubing, jet skiing, and flat water paddling. In all, we provide over 175 days of programming each year on a budget of about $1 million and thousands of volunteer hours. Like the rest of you, 2020 has been a big year of change for Achieve Tahoe. The pandemic has made a negative impact on our ability to deliver our programs and raise funds. For our activities to succeed, we rely on hundreds of volunteers who are trained in specialized techniques, utilizing specialized equipment. The nature of our programs requires close one-on-one instruction, something not possible with the physical distancing required during the pandemic. We lost almost a third of our winter season when we shut down in mid-March. We were forced to cancel our regular summer programs of water skiing, sailing, group beach days, and multi-sport camps for groups like veterans with disabilities. We had to cancel 3 major fundraising events because they were built around group gatherings. Well, undaunted Our wonderful staff persevered. We pivoted to activities that could be done safely with physical distancing. From scratch, we created several live virtual classes that aired 155 times to over 90 unique individuals. We also developed a brand new hiking program and spent 16 days exploring the trails around North Lake Tahoe with 55 different individuals. We were even able to conduct some limited kayaking. We certainly found a silver lining, but look forward to summer 2021 when we can continue our regular programming as well as put our new fleets of kayaks and sailboats to use and introduce climbing and equestrian programs. Currently, we're making plans to safely conduct our winter programs starting in December. Again, we're forced to adapt to a new reality, but adapting is something we do well. We're excited for the challenge. So I think it's time to party, right? Let's taste some wine. I'm honored that Stuart Bryan, the Vintner Ambassador for Pride Mountain Vineyards, is here to share both his expertise and his delicious wines. I'm sure you will enjoy his presentation, and hopefully we have enough time for all his stories. Take it away, Stuart.
Well, thank you, Håkan, very much. And I do have a mask on, but one thing I've learned after about 4 decades in the wine business, it's difficult to do a wine tasting with a mask on. So what we're going to do first here is say howdy. It's great to see everybody virtually, and it's time to wet the whistle. And we're just really honored here to be with Mike and Gina and their daughter Charlotte, and Håkan, who's been a fearless leader. Kimberly, the artistic director, just pulled a rabbit out of the hat more times. Dan's behind the camera. So everybody wave to Dan, he's waving back to us right now. Thank you everybody for getting together, but we know the essence of this really. We are doing a wine tasting, but one of the most important things I can say to you is it's important to give back. And that's really what this is about, our gathering together, and also for Achieve Tahoe and all the events and the outreach that they have. It's always important to give back. We certainly miss all of you. Many of you are like family, your friends. We have fun together. And one of the key things, and Mike and I talked about this for a minute, what we really want to do tonight is keep the momentum and sustain this event so Smokefest moves on and endures for years to come, right? Years, decades. There's no limit. There's no contract on this. We're gonna go for it. So, of course, we miss all of you. We're gonna have some fun tonight. And just by way of a brief introduction, my name is Stuart Bryan. All of this is true so far. And it's our family vineyard. Pride's a family vineyard that we've had now for over 30 years. And I have to say, a little bit tongue-in-cheek, Håkan mentioned this, but if I give you a business card, you're gonna look at it and it says, Vintner Ambassador. And what I want to tell you what that really means is when you've worked for a family winery for over 25 years, they don't know what to do with you any longer. So you become something like a Vintner Ambassador. So that's my role here tonight. Pride is, as I mentioned, a family vineyard on the tippy top of the Mountain Mountains. We've owned the property now for almost 30 years. And it's a beautiful spot. And I want to halt the presentation for 1 minute right now and do my favorite thing, was just give you the end of the presentation first. And what I'm saying is we want you to know that we're there, we're alive, we're well. We've dodged fires, we've dodged other issues have other people have in their life. But we want to invite you. It's my role right now to invite you to our family winery and come see us. We're by appointment. We've downscaled our presentation to make it very safe. We're following full COVID protocol and safety, but the idea is some of you have visited, we want you to come back, and if you haven't, we'd love to have you come see us on the very tippy top of our mountaintop. 3 things about Pride that really make it stand out. One is elevation. We had a joke earlier today on talking about being on the top of the mountain where we are, which is the Mountain Mountains, which is 2,100 feet elevation. Really does make a difference. Everybody teases me. Around here, that's a foothill. Things start happening here at about 6,000 feet and above. But the key is we are on top of the Mountains. What that creates is we're the watershed for 2 counties, for Napa and Sonoma counties, which creates the county line that runs right through our vineyards. So if somebody's standing at this end of the table, theoretically, on our property, you could be in Napa. Or if you're standing on that side, you could be in Sonoma County. So we do make wines from 2 appellations on our property. And it's not that we're confused people and don't know the difference or buy grapes from someplace else. We make Napa wines, Sonoma wines, and sometimes the harmony comes together when we can really blend them. Well, one of the most important things to you may be the result, and that's the intensity of mountain vineyards. It's harder farming, lower yield, smaller grapes, and intensified flavors. And hopefully you see that in some of these wines as we get into them in a moment. So everybody wants to know the guidelines to a good tasting. First of all, be happy. It's a wine tasting. Second of all, swirl your glasses. I always like to tell people this. Sometimes I forget because I do this for a living and I'm always doing, but it's not a bad thing. And it's not about spilling wine on your wife's white tablecloth or getting it on your neighbor. The white wines are a little safer, but I'm going to tell you the truth. If you spill one of these red wines on you, it's a permanent stain. You'll remember it for a long, long time. The value is you're aerating the wine, mixing a little oxygen, it releases aromatics, and the wine just really opens up and is more expressive to you. Give it a try, everybody. And also important for me to point out to you, man, that's good. It's important for me to point out to you that we are going to have a little bit of a question answer session. It's a lot easier, obviously, in person. You can raise your hand or you can shout at me or throw things. But we have a little chat box set up. Kimberly's running that. And as I finish the tasting of each of the 3 wines that we're going to have this evening, we'll stop and say anything in the chat box, any questions that you have. And this may actually be fun because you can't throw things at me, but you can say almost anything because it's not in person. And the other people can't hear the question. So our first wine tonight is Viognier, white wine. I'm pointing at it this way. It's on my left. It should be on first wine. And the reason for the tasting mats here is just an organizational thing. It does have a little bit of content that may be helpful. You can see the blends, you can see the appellations. It has a beautiful logo from Achieve Tahoe. We've also dropped in our website, so you have that available as a reference to you also. I've dropped in my personal email, my direct email. So if there's trailing information or questions or things that you want, that's all included right here in this information that you have. But people always like to ask us, now that I'm starting the official wine tasting, that's this guy over here, the Viognier. They always say, well, what is Viognier? And Viognier is a lovely white variety that originated in the Rhone Valley. And one of the things that happened to us when we looked at our property was the idea that we wanted to plant some things that were unique and distinctive and capture this growing environment. So we're the first people in California to plant Viognier at elevation. And again, this is at 2,000 feet in rocky volcanic soils. So I just said to you 2 things that are wrong. Number 1, we planted Viognier. It's a very difficult grape to grow, by the way. And number 2, we did it at elevation. And I'm going to tell you, we planted this vineyard block in 1990, and by the end of the year, I think I had white hair. I was so worried. It's like having a new baby or worrying about your car or something that was going on. And I just knew that farming Viognier in a mountaintop is going to be very difficult, but it's worth it. The end result is a wine that's bright, has acidity, some texture to it, marries with so many different kinds of food. I can't stop naming all the possible things that you could pair this lovely wine with. But one of the favorite things, stories that I recall is in our first vintage, which was 1994, when we were preparing to bottle this wine. Now remember, this is in the 90s, and how much were you going to spend for a bottle of unheard of white wine back then? I was in the vineyard with Jim Pride. He's getting on the tractor, and I said to Jim, I'm the marketing guy and do the sales in the family. And I said to Jim directly, we're going to release this wine. What do we want to charge for it? And Jim looked at me with a straight face and said, $40. And thinking, you know, there's that moment with a father-in-law that you always wonder about if it's wrong to say anything or if it's wrong not to say anything. So I drew my line and said, Jim, I think $40 is a little high for one of our first white wines, and people don't even, and he spun around as he's getting on the tractor and looked at me, and he said, if anybody here complains about a $40 price for this wine, bring them up here and I'll show them what it takes to farm this wine. And at that point, he said, well, charge 80 for it. Then if it's based on farming yields and as crazy as this grape, charge 120 for it. You're never going to get enough based on the farming and the yields. And so we had a lot of fun with that. And that was one of my first lessons for family marketing and decisions. We were a committee of 2 that day, if I recall. But I have an unbelievable story for you that I want to tell you, because what I did is I reviewed my contract with Hoken, and he gave me some extra time. So I've loaded my ticket tonight. But here's a favorite story. After 3 years planning in 1990, actually 4 years, we got no grapes. And in 1994, we got our first little crop set. And I always tell people, if you can squeeze the tips of your fingers together to make it, anyways, that was our first grape set. We got these little tiny clusters of these little tiny grapes. We're so happy. We have Viognier growing on the property. One thing we found out through our winemaking research is you want to get the grapes to ripeness at 23.5 bricks or a little above. Bricks is a term that gives you sugar percentage by weight. Don't worry about the technical stuff, but we had a mark that we wanted to hit for ripeness. We were at 22 on Monday. We were at 22 bricks on Tuesday. This went on for about a week. The next weekend, we're actually having a gathering. Now, this is a very important thing. I don't tell everybody about this. This is a famous Stu Bryan pose. It goes like this. I'm drinking a long neck beer, by the way. And I look up and we have this flock of birds circling our ridge line. We looked around and said, my God, we've never had birds up here before. And we all stopped at the same time and said, it's the Viognier. It's ripened. So I put somebody in charge of the grill while I was making my chicken. We got in the tractor, drove up there, and by golly, we were over 24 bricks. Somewhere overnight, they were ready. It was time to pick those grapes. But it's Sunday afternoon, so we run back to the ranch house. We call David. David has a brother who has a son. You know, it's our local harvest crew. And they went out and got the tractor and the gondola and pulled it around late in the afternoon. And they pulled in and they looked at this and they said, you're gonna what? They couldn't believe that we'd called them on Sunday to harvest these little. Anyways, the decision at that point was either harvest it now or it's gonna be really expensive bird food. And we did. We finished before sunset. We got it into the tank, did a light press on that. And I'll tell you what, that first wine was just every bit as lovely and had the texture and aromatics and sweetness of this lovely Viognier right now. So we learned a lot about farming. Sometimes the vineyards will tell you what to do. You're not going to write the program or the plan. So next year, all we did is we charged up our phones early and we had a bigger pool party and we waited for the birds. So we're brilliant farmers and I hope you enjoy this wine. And as I promised, as we're getting to the end of this section right now, there's one more thing I want to do. But remember, Kimberly, in a minute, will give me the signal if we've got any chat going on here, if you have questions or otherwise. But that's actually a true story. Everything's been true so far. But I have one other thing, because people will look at me and go, somebody said this to me in a restaurant. Why would you actually make a wine like this that you can't pronounce the name? I said, it's about the wine, it's about the flavor, it's about the aromatics, it's about the uniqueness. But I had everybody at a wine dinner, and we had plenty of wine, by the way. I said, follow me, folks, it's this easy. V-O-Yay. And they started to do it. V-O-Yay. And one table, I think, was having a little bit too much fun with it. And they were cheering and they were doing rah-rah. And when the chef came out of the room and looked at the whole place cheering for this white wine, he said, just put it on the wine list. They're going to buy it. So that is a story about Pride Mountain Viognier. Our other white wine, just so you know, is Chardonnay, which we've bottled since our first vintage in 1991. And we're going to check into the chat room and see if we've got anything going on there. Pretty quiet out there, folks. See, I can't see you, but we can watch what you're doing, kind of thing. Okay, we have the signal here. We're going to move on to our second wine. Just wait a second. I'm kind of having fun with this, everybody. Nice to have a job where you're supposed to drink. It's my duty. Okay, middle glass, red label, Pride Mountain Syrah, and I just wanted to tell you a little bit of the history because this really plays into what Syrah is. It's typically bottled as a varietal wine as Syrah. You've tasted wines that have Syrah in them from France, Gigondas, Châteauneuf-du-Pape, Côte-Rôtie. They're some of the greatest long-living wines in the world. The pedigree, the background to Syrah, traces back almost 4,000 years to original plantings that were located and discovered by DNA splicing, genetic splicing is what I'm trying to say, in Persia, in what's now northern Iraq and Syria. Evidently, the story is the Romans discovered it, they transplanted it to the south of France, and it grows beautifully in the Rhone Valley in France and makes lovely wines there. So it is another Rhone variety, R-H-O-N-E. So two things about it that really depicts our property. We have 6 different soil types at Pride Mountain Vineyards, and we started planting selectively an acre at a time of Syrah. We selected a different soil type each time. So it's almost like being in different climates or having different textures to fabric or having a different apple that you can tell that it really brought out different character from each one of these vineyard blocks. Sally Johnson, our winemaker, we have a woman winemaker leading our team since 2007. produces each Syrah block individually as they come to their conclusion in fermentation. We make some decisions about blending. One of the things also that is depicted here is a blend. Now, we gave you a little bit of a cheat sheet in front of you here. You're going to see something unique for the Syrah, that we actually have a little bit of Viognier and a small percentage of Grenache in the blend. What does that do? Adds breadth of flavor, brings up some aromatics, adds some texture, and it really is a tradition of this area of France. So it's more of a textbook thing following their winemaking, but it does add some expression. You make wine making decisions along the way. We do, and each winemaker does. Will you use oak? Will you use a lot of oak? Will you use new oak? Is it French oak? In this situation, I'm pointing this out because Sally Johnson is very careful to use neutral oak. What I mean by neutral oak is it's wine that has been used for other production already. It doesn't have as many tannins, doesn't have as much flavor. It's not quite as aggressive with the flavor or texture of the wine. We could have already used it for our Cabernet or Merlot, and quite honestly, typically comes out of our white wine program. Then we'll use it for Syrah. That just sort of babies the wine around, lets it develop its own flavor and texture, and doesn't really add tannins or weight to the wine. So that's an exciting thing that Sally has taught us about our winemaking and really balancing the wines and giving them some protection. So here's a story also that's true. Our first vintage was 2000. And after harvest, barreled the wine and bottled it. You won't guess, but we made 37 cases of wine, a total of 37 cases of wine, which is about my personal annual allocation, by the way. So Jim Pride being my father-in-law, this being a family business, we were very excited about this. And Hoken would come by and say, hey, Hoken, look, we're making Syrah. I'd see Kimberly and say, hey, take this home and try it with your cheeses. And Dan, I know you're a grill guy, or Mike, you're a grill guy. You have to have this with some. So we were just so happy. We would go over to the neighbor's house. Ding dong. Hey, we're making Syrah. And so it took about, I don't know, 7 or 8 weeks, and the Syrah was gone. So Jim Pride asked me, he said, do we actually sell it? He said, no, we drank it all. Or our neighbors did. So it's a wine we're really proud of. It's not always considered a mainstream wine. I love its versatility for pairing with foods. Many of you got my tasting notes or food recommendations, and there's lots of things that you can do with this that are exciting, including grilled meats, including cheeses, including spicier cuisine, because it does have that spice, little pepper element to it. But I always say the bottom line for me is a great Syrah is one that has that velvety texture. Might be a little spice on the edge, sometimes a little pepper, but it's that texture that really makes it a special wine. So Syrah is one of the 5 different red varieties that we make on the property. And I think now that you have had a little chance to taste a couple wines, our white wines, I'm going to do one more thing is see you check in on the chat room. You've had the 2018 Syrah. We're going to call Hoken back to do his magic here in a moment, but Kimberly is going to give me the signal if we have anybody in the chat box, if we have any questions that have happened yet.
Jeffrey said delicious.
Delicious. All right, right back at you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And again, golden moment, everybody. Actually, I didn't have a taste this with you. I'm going to say cheers to everybody one more time before Hoken comes out, and I'm glad you're enjoying the wines.
Thank you, Stuart. That is tasty. I can't wait till I get to dig in some of this. Well, hopefully everyone's enjoying themselves. How many folks, just maybe you can show in the chat, thumbs up, how many people did prepare some food or other snacks to go along with this tasting? A lot of thumbs up. Yeah, that's good. The intent really wasn't that you're going to drink all 3 bottles in this, hour, 45 minutes of the tasting. Hopefully you'll enjoy this through the rest of the evening. So enjoy that food and this great wine. This is kind of a little entertainment interlude here. I just want to share a story about one of our participants. And this is just one of the participants that joined us this summer. His name is Connor, and he's a young adult with autism. He's nonverbal, and he has difficulty focusing on tasks. He struggles to follow social norms. Connor has been skiing, water skiing, and kayaking with us for years, slowly building his skills and confidence to achieve independence in each sport. I would call Connor a regular. He and his family plan their summers around our program dates, signing him up for every opportunity. Connor's world was turned upside down when we canceled all of our summer programs due to the pandemic. For someone who has autism, like Connor, adjusting to changes and new things can be difficult, causing stress and anxiety. Fortunately, Connor had enough trust in Achieve Tahoe to try something new. He went hiking with us for the first time. Here's a short video we captured when Connor and his mother, LaDonna, joined us for a day of kayaking and hiking.
I'm LaDonna Ford, and this is my son Connor, and we live in Foster City, California. With Achieve Tahoe, there's no such thing as no or can't. It's everything is yes, let us figure it out, let us adapt it, and it just lets everybody and get to see what success is like. A lot of the volunteers seem to know how to work with Connor better than a lot of the teachers Connor's had in the past. I don't understand it, I don't know what they do, but it's pretty magical.
Cool.
Yeah. As a parent, to have someone who seemed to understand your child and didn't make fun of them and treated them with such respect. Connor's day-to-day life is hard. It's difficult, so I just love seeing him happy. We made friends over the 10 years, the employees and volunteers. He has to learn not to depend on me. He's really have to develop an independence and autonomy to advocate for himself. That's one of the best skills that he's learned. It's an amazing, amazing program. We're very fortunate to have it. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We're going to continue with some more wine tasting. And hopefully you're enjoying the wines. These are two of our favorites that were just released at the winery this May. And again, part of my idea today is it's not a commercial presentation about Pride Mountain wines at all, but I'll close with giving you a little bit more information. But we do want to let you know that the wines that I'm showing you today, although the bees are having a lot of fun out here today, these are currently available wines, because I think somebody just asked, can anybody buy Pride Mountain wines? Good. Well, the next wine here, wine number 3, it really is a cornerstone wine for our winemaking. And pardon me while I'm going to have some fun with the bees here for a second. But one of the greatest things about Pride Mountain Vineyards has been the production over almost 3 decades, starting with our 1991 vintage of Pride Mountain Merlot. And essentially, Pride explains 2 things about our winery, our vineyards and location. One is how you can make incredible wine on a mountaintop and the influence that mountain vineyards have. The second is the fact that we do blend wine from Napa and Sonoma, from both sides of the county line, as we call it, to bring together a really rich, well-textured wine. We have fun with this and pour it for people and stand back and they go, I'll just tell you the truth. They look at it and go, you know, we really love your Cabernet Sauvignon. And then I'll say to them, we do too, but you're actually drinking Merlot, sir or ma'am, because it's a big, rich wine, as you're going to find out as you delve into this. Two things that are really substantial about this also is, as I mentioned, the elevation. Growing grapes that are small berry size that give a lot of concentration really gives this wine a lot of depth and range. I have 3 stories for you, and one of them is goes back to our very early years when we first opened Pride Mountain Vineyards. We had a small 1-room sort of barnwood room that was we had nice little boards. They were polished and varnished, conveniently pointed to a center barrel that had a register on it. So, and people used to drive all the way up the mountain and find us and come in and buy some wine. We weren't open on Sundays then, but Saturday was a good day because Jim Pride was home and he loved to hang around in the tasting room. And Jim had just had his boots on, his old dungarees, and was always, I'll tell you the truth, was always drinking a Diet Pepsi. And he'd tease people and say to them, hey, folks, if you don't like the wine, I'll get you a Pepsi. And they didn't even know who he was until we finally explained, Jim and Carolyn Pride are the founders and the owners that bought this historic site, Pride Mountain was originally planted in 1862, if I didn't mention that. So there's a long, rich history. And here we are, the new guys on the block. We had a little tasting room set up, and the phone rings. And one of the staff picks it up and couples the phone like this and says, "It's Joe Montana." We're like, "Oh, that's great. It's got to be one of the neighbors that's calling to spoof us, or one of my buddies who knows I'm a big football fan." So we all got a little chuckle out of it, and Jim snatches the phone, starts up a conversation, and in a moment we realize he's talking to Joe Montana. And he thanks him for the great career, for the Super Bowl rings and the trophies that he's brought home, and says, "By the way, Joe, what can we do to help you?" And Joe says right to Jim on the phone, "I understand your wines are very hard to find, and I just thought I'd call the winery to see if I could buy some." So Jim has this lovely conversation with him. The consummate salesman, this is Jim Pride, says, "Well, why don't you buy 2 and we'll deliver it to you?" Well, Joe was smart enough not to let us deliver the wine to him, but he was clever enough that he bought 2 cases of Merlot. So that was the beginning of some really fun stories of interacting with people, celebrity status, or people that we know that we say are important or we love or that we follow. And this got us sort of on a roll after a while. In 1998, into this for a few years, I want to tell you, because anybody collectors out there, if you've got these wines in your cellar, you remember 1998 was not the best vintage. In fact, it was difficult. In fact, to tell you the truth, it rained, it was cold. Our harvest finished that year in November. That's pretty late to be growing grapes anywhere, including on a mountaintop. We saw these purple clouds rolling in at the end of October. We let the fruit hang out, and by golly, November, the sun popped out. We finished harvest, and in 1998, the Merlot that we made from a slightly smaller crop was one of the best red wines we've ever made. The 1998 was the top 100 wines of the world by Wine Spectator. One of the first times we'd gotten that among our accolades 6 times, 3 times for Merlot, 3 times for Cabernet Sauvignon. We love to share the love in our family. So that was a fascinating part to us. Another thing that happened to us was Robert Parker, and you'll see that there was right across the bottom, there's a little footer on your tasting mat that we throw in the idea that Robert Parker, publisher of the famed The Wine Spectator magazine, starting in the late 80s, going into the 90s, probably popularized the 100-point system. And the point is, he evidently had tasted 14,000 wineries in his database from around the world, and wrote a book with 156 wineries from around the world, greatest wine estates of the world, of which 22 were from California, of which we were one. So we thought that was quite a designation and quite an accolade also. We were very pleased to see that. So the next one was our wines were served at the White House. And here's the story, not unabated. We're in the tasting room. It's probably a couple months after Joe Montana called, and the phone ringed. Phone rings again. And this time he picked it up, and one of our workers nervously looks at Jim and looks at us and goes, "It's the White House." And Jim goes, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "What do we say?" And Jim goes, "There's not a salesperson amongst you." Reaches over again, grabs the phone, and strikes up this conversation that goes like this: "You want 22 cases of Merlot. You'll send a check, you'll send a truck, and the wine's going back to Washington, D.C. May I ask for what?" It was the 50th anniversary of NATO. 800 dignitaries from around the world were going to be seated at the White House, and it was a 3-course meal, middle course, Colorado bison served with Pride Mountain Merlot. Well, Jim was quick to take the order. They sent the check, the truck disappeared. We forgot to ask if we could attend the dinner, so we didn't actually. But when you visit our tasting room, you see that's one of the menus that's posted over on our wall in the tasting room from the 35 times over five different administrations that the Pride Mountain wines have been selected for either a diplomatic meeting or a state dinner or something of that nature. So we've had a long relationship there over 5 administrations. And some people say, was it the Democrats or was it the Republicans? Doesn't matter. It was our wine, but we're not those kind of people. I have to give you one joke that I always love to tell people. We go both ways. So there, you heard it from me. And the Pride Mountain Merlot was served at that dinner for 800 people nationally. So that was a lot of fun for us, and sort of put us on the map and gave us a cause to keep making Pride Mountain Merlot on a regular basis. This wine you'll see also on your cheat sheet is a little bit of a blend. We love adding a touch of Cabernet to bring up aromatics, sometimes a touch of Petit Verdot because it brings in that spicy element, enhances colors a little bit. But this is one that we want to say it really is a favorite wine of ours. A lot of people make great Cabernet. People love Chardonnay. You've had our Viognier, but Merlot for us is a signature grape. and a flagship. So before we move on, I'm going to give the wink to Kimberly, see if we have anybody else that's in the chat room or any questions. Somebody's got to come up with a zinger somehow.
Deborah asks, how did the White House find Pride?
Very good. If you didn't hear the question, I'll repeat it. How did the White House find Pride? Originally, a wine merchant in Sacramento by the name of David Berkeley became the consultant to the wine house. David knew all the vineyards, all the wine producers, and he was sort of the guy to go to for the action. So when the call came in, we need some special wines. David Berkeley, who'd become a customer and ultimately a friend of ours, recommended the Pride Mountain wines. Following that, subsequently, Daniel Shanks, who ran the wine program at Domaine Chandon in Napa, left Napa and became the head usher at the White House over 2 administrations. And the funny thing about Daniel is frequently he would call and ask, do you have these wines available? And it wasn't 2 or 3 bottles, it was usually cases. But the funniest thing was it wasn't a current release of a main wine. He wanted an older vintage of a reserve wine from our library. And we said, of course, Daniel, we'll ship it. Let us know how soon we need to get it there. So we had a couple great relationships that introduced our wines, and we sort of got some gravity, some traction to that. So that was a great question. And I'll stand by to see if there's any more.
We have some really great pairings. Peter has paired rack of lamb with Merlot and also risotto and crab cakes.
A+, score. We're coming over afterwards. Get the address. That is awesome. Rack of Lamb is a classic. If anybody bothered to, and Kimberly did a beautiful job printing up this outline, some open suggestions that I had. Lamb is one of my go-to foods for, especially Rack of Lamb would be lamb chops, little rosemary, the whole thing, a little skillet jus, and you've really got a great thing going on there. So some of you are looking at your wines from the front label. It's a good idea. Some on the back label, and I want to give my wife Suzanne credit. She's a co-owner of the winery for the jingle. Everybody says in business you have to have a jingle, and they say the shorter and more succinct, the better off you are. And ours is 1 ranch, 2 counties. It's something that she invented back in the 90s, which really explains our property. It's 1 legal parcel that dates back to the Spanish land grants in the 1850s. 1 legal parcel. Once appellation and counties came into a factor, county line divides us as Napa and Sonoma. So it's 1 county, or 1 ranch with 2 counties, and we hope you come and enjoy both of them. So I think we've covered most of what we have tonight, but I do have a couple closing notes. Hoken wrote on here, if you go long, I'll charge you extra. Okay, I'll cover that. I pay in wine if that's cool. But seriously, I just wanted to say to everybody that, it says I'm supposed to smile a lot, something else on here. But seriously, I wanted to say to everybody that thank you guys, Mike and Gina, for providing this beautiful property, for Hoken for his interest in bringing our wines into the fray, Kimberly for her diligent efforts here for weeks. Dan has been a pleasure to work with, and just for everybody at Achieve Tahoe, what a great group. And we understand the meaning, the purpose of what you're doing. So thank you very much for your time. I did say earlier, I'm going to repeat briefly, it's not a commercial presentation for Pride, but at any time that I can be of help, we can be of help, our family. Some of you may know that we own a home at Donner Lake and live here. This is our full-time residence, so we are local people. We do participate in other fundraising and other promotions that go on locally. But working with Achieve Tahoe is a wonderful thing. We see the purpose, we see the cause, we see the impact, and we always like to say, anytime you can invest and help a life, you've improved the quality of that community. And that's something we try to live by every day. So we want you all to continue to drink California wines. It's not just about Pride. Support our neighbors. Come to Napa and Sonoma. Some people have been concerned about fires and other issues, but this is the important part. Sonoma is a $4 billion wine industry. And from that trickles down all the other businesses, all the other families, the people that work in the farms and everything like that. So we're always excited when you buy any bottle of wine from Sonoma or Napa and support our industry. And we're just happy to be here to support with you. So what we want to do, we're supposed to raise a glass, everybody. Hopefully you have one. I'm going for the Merlot. What do you have? So we want to say thank you to everybody, and hopefully welcome you on the top. He's got to have wine.
Yeah, I'm jumping back on the screen here. Thank you so much, Stuart. I had to grab my bottle or my glass. Yes. Got to keep our distance here too. Yeah. But we do want to say thank you so much for all your wonderful wines and your time. Kimberly and Dan, who's behind the camera, for all their hard work to make this happen. Mike, who's a little off stage there for this wonderful site and event that he created. You know, and obviously thank all of you for attending. You've really made this a great night for us. And hopefully next year we can gather together in this wonderful place. I just want to give one little short plug, because I think, as you all know, small nonprofits like us are dependent on the generosity of individuals to sustain our work. So I encourage you to open your hearts and wallets to make a donation, and please help us in our mission to build health, confidence, and independence. So with your support, I'm confident that we'll continue to make a difference in the lives of those with disabilities and making this whole Tahoe area more inclusive for everybody. Thank you so much, and cheers.
Toast to everybody.
Cheers.
We have a special bottle that we're going to hand off to Mike while we're on camera here. And this is something we hope you put in your cellar, or if we hang around too long tonight, we'll probably just drink it with you. But that's something from Pride Mountain to say thank you for your support and for including us and opening your property. So something from our family to you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, team. Have a great night.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, good job.
Enjoy.
Which is